Hello, hello out there in WikiTree land.
Yes, and hello to you,
You
Mindy.
are here. Yeah, I'm here with Karen Lowe, who was, of course, the fabulous captain for the challenge week of Olivia Newton-John. And I'll apologize ahead of time if I have some kind of lag or something with my communications here because I'm still having a little bit of internet issues, but we're going to power through this anyways. So,
Yes,
Karen,
Mindy.
how do you feel the week went?
Oh, I had a great time, and I thought it went really well. We had over 3 dozen researchers working with us that had registered for our challenge, and we always have those invisible friends in the background that like to follow along and help us out and stay out of the spotlight. Um, just building the branches together. It was a very collaborative week.
Yeah, I agree. It was really fun seeing that many people in chat. And we always have somebody going since it is a global site. But yeah, with almost 40 people registered, and then those ones, like you said, that are behind the scenes helping out, there was a lot of people participating this week. It was exciting.
Yes, and so many different areas to research. We had folks working in Wales and folks working in Germany on Lutheran families and in Poland on Jewish families. I was working on some modern families that any Australians watching will know, like Olivia's niece, Toddy Goldsmith, has probably been on just about every television program in Australia for many years.
Yeah, and it was really interesting having, like you said, so many locations. And, we had Prussia added to that. We had an area that we got to learn a lot about this week, which was cool, which was East Frisia. And yes, I had to look that up because geography, world geography is not my forte. But really fun to learn about. And luckily, we had Guillaume there to explain the changes over the different years. There were many of them, many
Right.
for boundary lines.
Yes, I know he learned a lot this week, and the rest of us, some of us Americans, not known for our European geography expertise, but we learned about East Frisia up on the North Sea that has influences from Germany and from the Netherlands as well. And Guillaume Albacini in Europe found so many interesting finds this week. All of the members did around the world, but there was just quite a line of interesting folks there in East Frisia.
Right. And, I know that Olivia's background has been looked at before, but from what I can tell, they primarily researched her Welsh lines and showed those to her. So she was pretty excited at that point because, she didn't realize she had those Welsh ancestors. But of course, for the WikiTree challenge, we do all the branches. So,
Right.
we got to look at those ones like the Germans and those areas. And yes, there were just so many notables in her branches. It was fun.
Right, and then looking at the Welsh side, I know Hilary Gadsby was doing all kinds of work in Wales, and it's funny. Even myself, I didn't realize so many names that those of us in the U.S. just think of as, oh, it's an American name or it's an English name. They're really Welsh, when you look at, and it's a country where over half of the population shares just 10 names, and those definitely came up this week. I saw. Um, John, of course, is a Welsh name. It's like 27th most popular in Wales, and we had some Howell research, and Howells came in at like number 29, and Richards 20. But I know where Hillary and others really had some fun is when they start working on Morgan and Williams and Evan, because Evans is
Right.
like the number 4 name, and Williams is the third most popular name in Wales, and she had 2 branches of Williams family.
Yeah, I was going to say John Williams is not a name you wanted to have to search for. And thank goodness for Hillary's patience and, her dedication to staying on task because she did an awesome job with those lines.
And hearing that people are researching, particularly Hillary, researching someplace and Oh, that's just down the road. You know that the beauty of working on a global tree, on a global challenge, where we have people who can say, "Oh yes, I can actually go to that graveyard this week," and folks going to special libraries like their family history libraries and regional archives. You know, that's what's really fun when we work together around the world. I saw someone said they have Lowe in their family, and I'll tell you that. Personally, my surname used to be Lau, Lau, and it comes from Alsace, from that part of France that has a lot of German speakers and has been tossed back and forth between France and Germany over the years. Just like there was the dog was called Frisia. That's right. That's no, I'm thinking of Forsythia. I was going to say that's a yellow hedge, but no, that's Frisia is a plant as well, isn't it? That's funny. Now I have to go look up Frisia. I bet it's a little white flower. So I hope,
Yeah,
you know.
and I'll get to Frisia. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say I stuck that -866 at the end of my name because that's my WikiTree ID. So anyone who wants to go see my Lowe family, especially if you're from East Tennessee and you like to say Lau instead of Lowe, check out my WikiTree ID there and let's find out how we're cousins. That's always fun. So were you going to tell us about what was going on in East Frisia this week?
You know, I'm going to get to those, but I wanted to start out with one of our gentlemen that went from England to Wales first. And that would be James Newton. And, you know, that once again, these names were all so similar, and bless her heart, Hillary just stuck in there and kept looking, and several other people did too. There were a lot of people working on these lines, but James was at least a little bit amusing because we were talking about the landlords and the barkeeps, you know, and she was saying how he was charged with and pled guilty to selling adulterated whiskey. So for those that don't know, that's where they go in and they either use inferior products and they say it's high-end whiskey, or they go in and they color the cheaper whiskey to look like the better whiskey. So at any rate, they were fined either 40 shillings a month, or sorry, 40 shillings or a month imprisonment. So, you know, if it were me as a business owner, I'm sure 40 shillings was a lot, but I would just pay that and not do the month in jail.
Right, closing the bar
yeah.
for a month, that would be quite a hit to the business. But I wonder what happened to the pub's reputation. I mean, if they were in Cardiff, you know, that's probably not the only pub in town. And it seems like these sort of stories are why now countries like the UK and the US take their liquor laws so seriously, and they're very interested in measures, you know, in bars, getting an accurate pour, not having your thumb on the scale when you're drawing those shots, and making sure that the product you're selling is what is being advertised.
Right. You know, and like you said, a group of them, and the standards, there weren't standards really back then as much as far as quality, but, you know, they said a group of landlords and barkeepers. So, you know, were they all playing poker one night and got to talking about it and said, you know, we can make some more money if we just all water down the whiskey. What do you guys think?
Especially that second or third shot, you know, who's going to notice? Yep, the temptation to put one over on the customers must have been too strong.
Okay, so we're going to move next to Eberhardus Bachmeister, and he, of course, was in Germany. Now, this is Olivia Newton-John's sixth great-grandfather. So, so he's way back there. In 1684, he became the personal physician of the young Prince of East Frisia. He accompanied Christian Eberhard von Ostfriesland, I knew I'd say that wrong, and his mother, the princess, on their many, many journeys. And, you know, at one point, the prince actually contracted smallpox, and he cured him of the symptoms. So, you know, and back then, of course, they just didn't have the the healthcare and, vaccinations and all the stuff we do now. So those were some pretty serious diseases.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I know smallpox was one of the ones that really helped us pioneer vaccinations when we learned that we could infect someone with cowpox, which was a much less serious disease, but it was so similar that you could build some immunity. But of course, that would have been 100, 200 years in the future here from Eberhard. Trying to take care of his prince, because boy, you can only imagine what would have happened to him if that smallpox case had turned out to be fatal. It might have been fatal for the doctor as well.
Right. And even during our lifetimes, I mean, my children, when they were born, we didn't have a chickenpox vaccination. So, the way to make your children handle chickenpox okay and survive it was when you found a family member or a friend that called up and said, "Hey, little Johnny has chickenpox." You loaded the kids up and you took them over there. you
And you
know,
had a chickenpox party.
right? Because the younger they are, as long as it's not a baby, the younger they are, the better they deal with it and recover from it. Chickenpox in a teenager can be fatal. And, so you went and had your kids all catch chickenpox at the same time. And then you just put them all in one bed and bring them snacks and stuff like that and keep out of school at the same time. And now, of course, they have chickenpox vaccinations.
That's
So my
right.
grandchildren have vaccinations against it.
Yes, I was one of those babies who got it, and they did have the vaccine when my daughter was young. But I remember a time when someone in the family had gotten chickenpox, and I thought my daughter did too. But it wasn't really pox. She was allergic to the antibiotics I was giving her for her ear infection. And so every 4 hours, nothing ever scabbed or, turned into a chickenpox sore. She just broke out in hives every 4 hours until I realized what was going on. And then she got the vaccine. So hopefully she won't have to suffer from shingles, which comes up for those of us who have had chickenpox. And good morning to Stephen. Glad folks are here.
Yeah, definitely not something you want to mess with. And then I'm going to move over to Martin Luther. And of course, I'm sorry, but you see Martin Luther and your brain automatically wants to do Martin Luther King, but it's not. We're going way, way back in Olivia's tree. And this would be her 12th great grandfather, I believe. Yes, he is. And he was a reverend and a doctor. And he was best known for shaking up the religious world with his 95 Theses, which of course started the Protestant Reformation movement. So, he was very, very big in religion. And I love this with a stained glass of him. Luther before the diet of worms. I'm not sure what the story is behind that, but I'll let him have that diet because no, thank you. But just fascinating the different, occupations and the varied areas of discoveries that these guys found during the week.
Right, for sure. And of course, Martin Luther King being named for Martin Luther, because, we think of Dr. King as a civil rights activist, which of course he was, but it was his Christian faith that really informed his activism and his belief, of course, that all of the children of God deserved the opportunity, to have a fair and a peaceful life here in the U.S.
Right. And then I'm going to do one last one in East Frisia, and that would be Frederick Wilhelm Halem. And he was in Emden in 1786, so still way back there as a general practitioner. And he had a very lucrative practice, and he did some scientific work on the side. I mean, the minds of these educated ancestors is just amazing how much they came up with. But he actually wound up being the state physician for East Frisia. And so from 1797 until his death, there were all these, of course, I said briefly earlier, there were all these boundary changes. Well, the government and everything just kept going through political upheavals and, things kept changing. But the one thing that stayed consistent is he held this really high position, very well respected position of the state physician until his death.
Right, to be able to go on doctoring, or at least keep that title, even when he was getting up in years. Yeah, late in his 70s. Looks like he made it too.
Yeah, not quite the same as, what we have nowadays, but to me, it's so much more impressive back then, when there weren't all these resources and, different things available, programs available for professional people such as doctors.
Right, but I bet being the state physician, like we, see in modern times, your medicine can get political. Yeah, so the trials and tribulations of not just trying to be a good doctor, but trying to practice your statecraft and keeping in the good faith of those who have employed you, when you have strong opinions about medicine that you want to share.
Right. And reproving loyalties over and over,
Right.
saying, okay, I really fully 100% support you now. Yes.
Right.
For all time, I support you.
Right. Even though you just beheaded the guy that I pledged my undying loyalty to last week.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes, we have that
Now,
today too.
who else did you find interesting through the week, Karen?
I spent a lot of time with modern relatives. I enjoyed learning about the synagogues and the Jewish families in Australia. Olivia Newton-John has a niece, Toddy Goldsmith, who's very well known in Australian television and did some singing like her aunt Olivia before her. And her dad, Brian Goldsmith, is said to be the fellow who took Olivia to her first singing lesson. Her brother-in-law, who was several years older than her and very well known for running nightclubs in Melbourne. So I had a lot of fun on the Goldsmith family in Australia back to England. But then I noticed that other folks were working on the Goldsmith family in Max Born's line, a totally different branch of Olivia's tree, her actual ancestry and not her in-laws. And I was impressed with how many of her ancestors we were able to find. I've got Olivia's fan chart up, but let me just show you that. And here comes the infinite mirror. I swear I'm clicking share.
It's thinking about it.
Yeah, it's thinking. I'm clicking entire screen and share, and here comes the infinite mirror. And then, so I'll zoom in a sec, but just to see how much we did. This is Olivia, her parents, grandparents, great-grandparents we had going for us, but we were able to find all 16 of that next generation, her great-greats, and then almost all of her, second greats as well. So we're missing a few on those hard to trace lines. If we come in and look at Oliver John. Oh, Oliver Olivia. I didn't make that connection until just now. That must be her, who she was named for, in part. Yeah, and then so we had 6 out of 8 there, and then all 8 of Daisy Newton. And a lot of these are those Welsh names we saw, like there's some Williams and there's some more Williams there. We've got these 2 Williams from the late 1700s that neither one, we can't fault anyone for not figuring out whose John Williams this was that married into the Moss family. And then over on her mother's side, where we see so many of the Jewish and Lutheran lines in Germany and off to East Frisia, we had 6 out of 8 here from Max Born, just this Kaufman family. Again, that's a common name, and with a first name like Solomon, that would be challenging, but a good something for someone who wants to pick up and just keep on keeping on with the research here. And then Max Born's wife, Martha Ehrenberg, we managed to find all of her great grandparents. So folks did just so well. And here comes the Jerings, where we saw some, and there's Bachmeister, where we see those very folks you were just speaking about. So I was impressed with just how much got done. And here's the Goldsmith ancestors, and then of course I was working on in-laws. So just so many families that we made such great progress on this week.
I know, incredible. And I looked at the amount of connections and profiles that we added, things like that, and there were 911 total ancestors added within 7 degrees, which in a week's time is just amazing. Even with that many people, that's still an incredible amount. But we actually made 944 plus connections. So some of those, there were a few that were on WikiTree and we connected to them. And, I say plus because all of those private ones down at the bottom part of the tree that are really close, it doesn't count in when it does that count, that relative count. So we actually had more than 944 people connected to Olivia, which is crazy.
Right. But we don't want to, don't need to count the modern folks that folks are adding in their own part of the tree, because that's definitely a mind your own business part of the tree. So, but it's so fun to see those
these
cousins
apps and extensions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sorry. I know that's where my leg comes in. I'm not trying to talk over you. The apps and extensions, we have these incredible developers that do this stuff just like everything else on WikiTree. It's free, and so in their own time they sit out of the goodness of their heart and they make these tools that are so fun for us to use and make our lives easier as genealogists or family historians. And but because of that, the say, like for the extensions that show the fan charts, they don't have access. We can't give them access to the WikiTree server. So, that's because we want to protect your privacy and your living relatives' privacy.
Right.
And so they aren't allowed to pull any data that's private. And that's why you wind up with a lower number than what you actually should have.
And that's great. I love the way that we balance that, making the data available to folks to develop that our founders and folks like you on the team are not trying to keep it all for yourselves, because it is a free system, and you're not looking to sell it and make $1 gazillion. It's promised to be free forever. So we can provide that access and allow folks to innovate, around the outskirts of WikiTree. But still, like you said, those tools have the same access that I do. And so they can't see, it's completely, I think, quite safe to add the grandkids, to WikiTree, because those tools and those users, no one can see them except those, aunts and cousins that you've specifically granted access to. So I love that we can share our data without giving away people's privacy.
Yeah, and since I mentioned it, I want to, fix this real quick.
Oh, let's see what we're going to see. I'm in suspense.
I'm just going to show that apps page because, if you have not checked out the apps and the extensions on wikitree.com, then you really need to. And, there's some great tutorials out there if, you need a little bit of help learning how to use them. If there's one that doesn't have the tutorial, you can either ask the developer, or you can ask somebody like me that does tutorials for a lot of these, and we'll see what we can do about getting you one.
Oh, that's great. Having our chat going on adjacent to WikiTree on Discord, and having the ability to have a Zoom meeting together, we've all leveled up our skills, in the past couple of years. And I really encourage folks to join in on that, because I always learn, when someone's sharing screen and showing how they research, we can always go, wait, how did you do that? And, show that to me, because there's so many tools that you can't be an expert on all of them, but you can find a new way of researching that just can save so much of your time. Life is short, and there's 30 million ancestors to look at on WikiTree. So I love that we are sharing skills and getting to have that real-time collaboration and chats like these with each other, making friends and sharing research ideas.
Right. And, you definitely don't get that on the other sites. You can't go to one of the other sites and go, oh, what are their Zoom meetings to chat with the other genealogists
Right.
this week?
Yeah.
But you certainly find something for WikiTree. There's always somebody chatting somewhere.
Right. It's such a great size, that it's a powerful enough team to drive essential tools for research, but it's a small enough going concern that you can chat with the founder, that you can chat with members of the staff team like Mindy, and influence how the site is designed, and seeing that path of folks become very volunteer leaders and then find important things to do for the tree professionally has been really great to see over the years.
Right. And then I want to go ahead and, talk a little bit about the scorekeeping. Now, of course, we don't do the WikiTree challenge just for the points, but it is kind of a fun way to motivate yourself and also to keep track of your progress, to see how much you've really done that week. And so we do give points out for various things. And I'd like to go ahead and list off our top 10. If I say anybody's name wrong, I apologize now. For number one, and Guillaume Albacini was not only our top one with points this week with a total of 214 points, but he was also one of the two they tied top bounty hunters this week. So that was really exciting. And number two would be Chris O'Connell. 3 was Tracy Bent. 4 was one of our captains, Maddie Hardman. 5 was Dunja Brandis, and she's new to the challenge, and she was just an amazing amount of help this week again. Caitlin Emmett was number 6. Karen, you were number 7, so you were doing great at adding those profiles. And another one of our captains, Donna Bowman, she was in 8th place. Another captain, I see a theme going here. Our captains were all hooked on this. That's why, it's easy to score those points up. It's really hard to walk away from the challenge once you get caught up in it. Number 9, of course, was Kathy Nava. She's always such an incredible, great help at looking up stuff for people and still doing the work to add family members. And then 10, we have Stephen Greenwood, who, has participated in a number of these and did a great job too. So, hands up to you guys, and thank you. But thank you to all of them, everybody that contributes to these challenges in any small way. It benefits our tree and it benefits us.
Right. So often we see folks who aren't adding a gazillion profiles, but they're instead transcribing an entire will in sloppy handwriting, making us a space page that's not even about particular ancestors, but it's about an industry in the town or a topic where they just really dig in deep, and we get so well educated. We really get to focus on the history part of family history with some of these contributions of folks that you don't see at the top of the I added 100 people to the tree this week kind of chart. Although that's really fun as well.
But that's one of the things that's great about WikiTree, is we're not just here to document the sources and attach sources. We're here to bring that person to life and to, memorialize them in a way that future generations can go, oh, wow, this was my 7th great grandfather. Let me read about him. And they can learn a little bit about him, and go into the biography and read the story about his family and what he did for work and, how many kids he had, and just kind of feel like they're part of that person's life, that they know them.
Yes, and to trace those connections sideways through brothers and sisters, through partners in families, that you don't have to take an interest in your personal ancestry if that doesn't speak to you. You know, maybe you get excited about the state physicians of East Frisia. Maybe you get excited about Jewish pioneers in the southwestern U.S. You know, a story that folks don't know much about, and it turns into your master's thesis in history. Or you know, the level of research going on is pretty astounding.
Right. And in the past, we've even had like, sometimes we'll find a factory that a number of the relatives worked at or something like that. And then it's kind of fun because you go in and you start, adding all the people to the space page, doing a link to them so that you know who all worked at that same place. And sometimes you go in and you find family members you didn't even know, should have been on the tree. You're like, that's the same last name. I better go look at that one. And it turns
Right.
out, somebody had 8 kids instead of 7, or
Yeah, sometimes you get bonus family members, and by working these sideways connections, you know, I was just talking to someone this morning who has born ancestry in Germany, and as I looked, it was, well, you know, your family's in you know, that town that starts with a B that I can't remember for anything because I'm trying to, but her family was way over on the west of Germany, close to Alsace, at the same time that Max Born's born family was in Posen in Poland. And, you know, her family was getting baptized in the Lutheran church. And, um, and Max's family was having, you know, a Jewish life at the same time. But then I thought, well, look, here's all these cousins that are on the tree on a different line, or here's the wacky path between your borns and his borns. That maybe you don't share the same ancestor, but those sideways paths can be really fun to explore. And meeting those
right.
cousins, you know, that might have the photographs or the family record books that you've never seen, you know, because some third cousin is like, why did I wind up with grandma's brother-in-law's family album, you know, and then they get to you get to find each other through a great global tree.
Right. And I think that's one of the things that people forget sometimes. We try and take the whole family approach. We want everybody that belonged in that family or in their life, hopefully on WikiTree, and we want to attach them as best we can, but you think about your own current life, and you have cousins that you might have grown up with, and maybe aunts and uncles that influenced you, or somebody that passed on a love of cooking or piano playing or whatever it is, and maybe just the appreciation of nature. And these people are all important to you. Well, it's kind of the same. And it's really easy to get stuck in a rut and go, oh well, I have my great grandparents, I'm going to add their mom and dad, and now I'm going to add their mom and dad, and just go up that direct line, but they weren't any different than we are. Those cousins were, most likely in their life. And especially back when there weren't, you get far back enough where there weren't cars where you could jump and go, drive 2 hours to see somebody. A lot of them were right there in that same area. And so there, those aunts and uncles were important, the cousins were important, and the neighbors even were important.
Right. Yes, you know, if you just focus on the parents and their parents and their parents, you get to a part where you're stuck because you didn't know what the origin of the family is, and rather than giving up and turning off the hobby, like you said, you know, what about those people that were in the same school, you know, that were in the same club, that played cards or decorated flowers or tried to help each other survive the winter, you know, folks that were in the same grange or union hall or place of worship as your ancestors, you know, can probably help tell the story even better than chasing that elusive person, you know, 4 generations back in their tree. And like I said, the ability to just totally put your own family aside and work on something else can bring you so much joy. You know, like I'd always much rather wash your dishes than my dishes, because if I'm washing yours, we're together and I'm helping and I'm being a good friend. You know, if I'm at home, that's just work.
Right. And, you know, talking about those connections kind of brings me back to the point system just a little bit, you know, because one of the things we definitely try and do is, once again, make as many of those connections as we possibly can. And, you know, the more that you add people that are in these peripheral relatives to your branches, the more likely you are to solve those mysteries or to connect, like Karen said, you know, to a cousin. And so, you know, out of the 8 great grandparent lines, there's 8 of them. And we had 5 of those 8 lines, people made brand new connections on. So, you know, instead of being only connected this way, you know, now you had all these other directions you could take and possibly wind up related to Olivia or have your relationship shortened.
Steven says he's going to save me some of his dishes. All
Yeah, I
right,
was trying to pop that
I'll
up
be
there
over.
and it wasn't letting me.
All right, I'll come on over, and then you can come and do mine because there's plenty.
Yeah, I have some chores. I don't have any canning for you to do though, Stephen, and my garden's done with, so you can't help with that stuff.
Yeah, I was surprised to see.
He does a lot of canning though.
Oh, nice. Was surprised to see people here in Utah saying they're finally eating tomatoes. I'm like, boy, I've been eating tomatoes for 2 months. Some folks are just behind. Getting ready to have a whole bunch of tomatillos though, so I guess I better figure out how to make some green salsa. Oh, there goes Mindy's internet. That might be the end of the show. We'll have to see if we get her back. Otherwise, I'm here talking to myself. Well, let's see what I can think of to tell you. We've looked at the fan chart. We've talked about the score sheet. And Steven's got more tomatoes and a handful of purple beans. It was so hot here in Utah that my beans and peas just absolutely refused to grow in the 100-degree heat. So the eggplant thought it was great. And the tomatoes, of course, love the sun and the heat. But it's been awfully hot and awfully dry. I just want to take time to thank everyone for getting together on the challenge. We had like I said, over 36 people working, a bunch of you chatting away on Discord. And even if you're not a big chatter, I'd encourage you to check it out just to see what people are finding and what skills they're sharing, to maybe pop a query into the channel there and see who you can find to give you a hand with your research. Let's see, Mindy, did you make it back with us? She's got a lag.
I am trying, but I don't know if my video is going to hold out for this LiveCast.
Yeah, it might be time to call it a day. Steven's asking if I have Lowe's in Michigan, and I'd encourage you to just go to Lowe-866 and check out my tree. There are a number of people that headed north out of the Smoky Mountains to find work. I haven't run into my cousins in Michigan. Lowe is a pretty common name in England as well. Mine was originally LAU, from Alsace into York County, Pennsylvania, and then to many points west from there. Yeah.
And in the meantime, you know, look for us for the next challenge. Of course, we'll be doing the Source-a-thon coming up, and then we'll be focusing on Mark Hamill, which will be great. So if you haven't registered, look in the G2G forum and find us there.
Sounds good. Use the source.